Renowned scientist Dr. Alec Holland is attacked by paramilitary thugs and doused in his own experimental plant formula. This formula transforms Dr. Holland into a plant monster born of the swamp, a force for good that challenges all who dare upset the natural order of his domain. Also, don't mess with his girlfriend, or you will conjure the wrath of Swamp Thing. I'm Connor Eyzaguirre.
I'm Austin Johnson.
And this is Filmgazm. Happy Wednesday, listeners. This is the Filmgazm podcast, and today we are diving back into Wes Craven's filmography for one of his less celebrated entries, a film that has not aged well in the slightest, 1982's Swamp Thing. Joining us today is Filmgazm contributor and guest host Josh Allred. Thanks for being here today.
Hell yeah.
And I think you'll act as a good counterpoint because both Austin and I really hate this film, but I think you have a couple good things to say about it.
I'm going to try.
Also, for those of you who tune into our new podcast, Oscar Sunday, we apologize for not doing a This Week in Film segment at the end of this past Sunday's episode. We simply forgot, and we promise to do our best not to leave out anything in the future. We'll be doing that segment at the end of today's show in place of the spotlight. So it's going to be like old times, even though it's only been like 2 episodes since we've dropped that.
Hey, when you're talking about Spike Lee, you can get caught up, you know.
Oh yeah, especially since we go in blind. There's no script there, so it's just us like relying on our memories to make sure we keep everything intact. Going forward, we might want to start about thinking about a safety net or something. Couldn't hurt.
A big reminder that says This Week in Film.
Yeah. I've got 2 updates for you on the rewind today. One that updates early episode 8, The Changeling, and one that updates recent episode 86, What We Do in the Shadows. First up, there is a remake of The Changeling in the works from director Anders Engström, a Finnish TV director known for directing episodes of Taboo and Hannah, among others. Producer Joel B. Michaels, who produced the original film, is heavily involved in the remake, or as they're calling it, a reimagining. No word yet on a production start date. So the remake and The Changeling, what do you guys think?
I don't know. Like, I get really torn about these kinds of things because at some point I feel like enough is enough. Yeah. Just find more things that are either new or something fresh, something like that. It's lazy a lot of the time. And yeah, I understand if you have people that are directly connected it from the source material, it makes it a little bit easier to swallow, but it just seems lazy. It just there's no real risk involved in that. And that's one of the things that always bugs me when, a major studio or anybody with money reaches out and says, "Oh, I'm going to take this and I'm going to remake it because I know if I slap this name on this, it could be a big fat turd in there, but people are going to want to get it." And it drives me crazy.
Yeah, that's true. Austin, what do you think?
I couldn't agree more. That was so well said. Lazy is that's the definition of lazy right there. You know me, Connor. Film guys and listeners know me. Just do something different, my man. Use your brain.
Yeah. And The Changeling, it's not, I did it as an early episode alone, and it's not special. It's not particularly, fantastic. I thought it was a decent film. George C. Scott is amazing, and I wouldn't, as an actor, if I was an actor, I would not want to step in his shoes. George C. Scott is one of the most important actors, one of the most talented performers of the 20th century. That would be a tough act to follow right there.
Yeah.
And I feel like if they do this, it's going to end up like the Jacob's Ladder remake from last year that nobody remembers.
I forgot about that.
Even bother.
Yeah.
I didn't even bother.
I saw it in passing on Netflix. I was like, oh, Jacob's Ladder, 2019. What the fuck? And then, yeah, apparently they remade Jacob's Ladder and didn't tell anybody.
Gosh.
And I just think, that's where the Changeling remake is probably destined. Horror remakes, they're either really great or absolute shit, and most of the time they fall into the latter category.
Yeah, I think a prime example of that is what we just saw with you do something new and different, like The Invisible Man with Elizabeth Moss, and it's refreshing and fun to see a female on the front of like a horror movie. That kind of thing I can dig, but yeah, man, there's this place for these horror movies. It looks like this is where Changeling is headed.
Yep, we will see. And finally, Jermaine Clement announced he will be leaving the writer's staff of FX's What We Do in the Shadows for season 3. No word on why he's leaving, but Clement has always been one to juggle multiple projects. And I don't think it's, malicious. There's probably no bad blood. I think he just wants to do other stuff. But I have not yet checked out the show, but I've heard great things.
Yeah, it's a good show.
It's fucking hilarious. It's fucking hilarious is what it is. Me and my wife have been watching it, and I can't remember like laughing out loud to something, just genuinely being in the moment of it and enjoying it, and just looking and going, "Dude, this shit is hilarious." It's actually funny, and it's pretty brilliant how they took the same concept from the movie and just repackaged it and kind of like Americanized it in a way, but it's still funny. It still expands on the world that they build.
Yes.
It's just so well done, and I think that only speaks to the genius of Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement, and how they were able to put the same thing out there, but had a lot more room to mess with stuff. I don't know if you guys ever heard about it. They did a spin-off series in New Zealand called Wellington Paranormal.
Yeah.
It was about the two cops, and I had to get the DVD of it imported from New Zealand, and it has its moments where you're kind of like, this isn't as funny, but it's pretty good. So, and they both have their hands on that as well. So
yeah,
they can do it, and I think that show is working on its 3rd season. They have 2 seasons out already.
It's pretty admirable that these two guys managed to create such a global franchise out of this goofy movie of 3 vampires living together in Auckland. I mean, that's just awesome. They have a werewolf movie they announced. They're going to do a movie following the wolves now. I'm excited. I love these guys. Their comedy is fucking hilarious, and I love anything they touch.
You're in good hands with Taika.
Yes.
Yeah, and if it's not called Werewolves, Not Swearwolves, I will be upset. I'm just gonna say
that. That's awesome. I want Stu to be the new pack leader. Like, I want there to be dissension in the ranks, but he's not even trying that hard. They just like him so much.
Yeah, just have a bit of dialogue about it.
Yeah. Maybe the pack leader didn't really want to do it, but I figured, why not? Oh, that could be so good. So, Swamp Thing. Now, I know this was Austin's and my first time seeing this, but Josh, how did you find Swamp Thing?
So, probably like most people my age, it was comic books. Swamp Thing, his Marvel counterpart Man-Thing, those were they came around right at the same time. Yeah, totally original name.
Man-Thing. I love it.
Yeah. Man-Thing is probably a lot like weirder than Swamp Thing is. Like, I would have to consult my resident genius friend Ty about Man-Thing. He knows way more about that stuff than I do. So yeah, I first saw those, and then it was the TV series that came in the 90s. I used to watch that, and I vaguely remember seeing return of Swamp Thing when I was a kid, and as I got older, I started to revisit some of the stuff that I had I'd seen when I was a kid or didn't remember seeing. I was like, oh, I was gonna check this out. So yeah, it was definitely comic books first. I just remember kind of being fascinated by the whole idea of it and how it kind of blended the mad scientist with like a monster story, and inevitably the monster must find love and be accepted and all that other tropey stuff. But it was really good. I enjoyed it. This movie, however, not so much.
Yep. Talk about butchering any opportunities you could have to make a really standout superhero movie in the 80s. And it's films like this that perpetuated the idea that superhero movies couldn't be successful until like the early 2000s. Swamp Thing was based on the DC Comics character of the same name that first appeared in House of Secrets number 92 in July of 1971. The first Swamp Thing was named Alex Olson, and he got his powers after falling into a bunch of unstable chemicals and then having his dying body dumped in a swamp by his rival, who then pursued Alex's wife, Linda, as you do. It's always unstable chemicals. It's always like, doesn't matter what those chemicals are, just combine any kind of generic poisons and chemicals, and you're going to make some kind of superhero. And Alex returned from the dead after the chemicals combined with the swampy vegetation, transforming Alex into a monster with a heart of gold. The film Swamp Thing, Dr. Alec Holland, is the second character to be known as the Swamp Thing, and he first appeared in Swamp Thing number 1 in November 1972. He's a member of the Justice League, among other superhero organizations, and I would bet money that in my lifetime, and probably the lifetime of my eventual children, we'll never see a movie with Swamp Thing in the Justice League.
No, it would have to be something special like the Justice League goes to the swamp. And that's, or some other Scooby-Doo type of shit. I don't know.
If they ever do like a Justice League dark movie, I mean, I can obviously see that Swamp Thing and Deadman and John Constantine and Batman, because he's always there. But I don't know. This seems like too much of a gamble that DC would never be willing to bet on. I mean, we saw with how they handled the TV show debacle that they just are not willing to take risks in any fucking department. It's crazy.
Well, they can't. I mean, Marvel's got such a, they're taking up all the room. So they have to be extremely strategic. And I think the only thing that they've managed to do better than Marvel is their animated movies.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
100%.
Hands down. But you'd think that with knowing Marvel is this monumental force that is so just pure box office gold, unstoppable. They've got Disney bankrolling them. Knowing you can never, ever measure up to that. I feel like that would inspire you to just kind of, try new things, knowing that you won't have that success, but you might have some success. I don't know. I think I wish that had the opposite reaction.
Take a fucking chance.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. And typically in the past, when DC has, let a director have their own vision, just don't touch their product, the films have been stellar, or at least better than what they usually got. I mean, Aquaman had that, Wonder Woman had that, Birds of Prey had that, Shazam. So it's there. They just don't know how to mine it correctly. And I don't think they ever will, because nobody, consistently doesn't learn from their own mistakes like the fucking film studios.
Yeah, find a real director too. DC, find someone. Do like you pointed out, Christopher Nolan. Find someone who's committed for not just one movie. Shazam was like a hit, but I feel like nobody really talks about it anymore, and that happens.
It came and went.
It happens with these DC movies where someone like me who doesn't have this foundation of reading comics a lot as a kid, I'm just like, what the fuck is this? What's going on? I'm sure you guys are just as lost, but I don't know if a Swamp Thing movie could do anything unless it was extremely dark and extremely out there, and had a director who was willing to push the limits. Maybe someone like Denis Villeneuve, who's doing Dune, who did Prisoners, Enemy. Those movies are pretty cool. I think he could maybe do something, but I don't know. They got to find somebody right.
In my mind, there's only one director who could do a fantastic Swamp Thing movie, and that is Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, that'd be a great call. Of course, I mean, he can build something amazing. Yeah,
I don't know, maybe, probably not.
Yeah, no, that's the thing, is DC's not going to do that. Josh said, take a chance. Fucking DC.
Well, what about David Cronenberg's Swamp Thing?
Oh, that would be badass.
DC would never let that happen. That would be so fucking dark and uncomfortable. It'd be awesome.
That's the thing. Like, you want to compete at all with Marvel, you got to do a Dark Knight. You got to do something crazy. You got to have a character who's out there, man. And all these recent DC movies are just, none of those characters really last with you.
True.
Well, I think something about Swamp Thing that they could try and like position themselves with is one of the things that was, really prevalent in the television series was like the focus on like the environment, and they even kind of play it up some in the TV series they had that they foolishly canceled, pussies. Is like, like take something that's topical and relevant right now, and then use that as a means of like, giving your story some kind of, grounding in reality, and you can do something with that.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Swamp Thing was written and directed by Wes Craven, director of past Filmgazm topics The Serpent and the Rainbow and Scream, as well as future Filmgazm topics A Nightmare on Elm Street, The Hills Have Eyes, The People Under the Stairs, and The Last House on the Left, among others. And we've talked so much about Wes Craven that I'm going to just breeze by now. Like in the past, we've just gone overboard on Wes Craven. But it's a horror movie podcast. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
The film stars 80s scream queen Adrienne Barbeau as Alice Cable, government agent. Barbeau has also appeared in 80s classics Creepshow, The Fog, Escape from New York, The Cannonball Run, and she's the voice of the chess computer in The Thing. And Adrienne Barbeau is probably the best thing about this movie.
Hands down.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know, man. I just I didn't find much of this to be interesting, and the skinny dipping scene seems totally out of left field.
Well, there's a reason for that. We were watching the international cut of the film. That was the YouTube copy we found.
Yeah.
The theatrical version is PG and has no nudity. So
what else is not in the theatrical version? Just
the nudity.
Okay. Well, yeah, because the movie's like already, I think, like hour and 28 or something. It's pretty short.
Yeah. It was just, I guess, if you're international audiences are going to watch a movie about a swamp monster, they need to see some tits. Those are the rules. But
oh man,
I was really confused because I saw, PG score and there's nudity, and I'm like, geez, what do you have to do in the 80s to get an R rating? But then I found out, oh, okay, international cut.
Yeah.
Shit. But I always liked Adrienne Barbeau. She's always been one of my favorite 80s actresses, and I fucking loved her in The Fog, which I watched recently for the first time. And
she's great. I love her. She's actually in the revival series of Creepshow on Shudder. She was in one of the early episodes. I think the first one.
Yeah, I watched that episode, and I remember being excited to see her. That was cool. Mm-hmm. She played the like super naggy bitch in The Crate. Fantastic. Louis Jordan plays the evil Anton Arcane, scientist or paramilitary leader or evil count. I'm not really sure. Jordan is known primarily as the Bond villain Kamal Khan in 1983's Octopussy. and he has also appeared in such films as Gigi and Letter from an Unknown Woman. He also appeared in the sequel 1989's The Return of Swamp Thing. He died in 2015 at age 93 from natural causes. Have either of you seen Octopussy?
Oh, yes.
Actually,
Really?
I have not.
Yeah.
I would have thought that was going to be reversed. Okay.
Yeah, no, Connor, we've talked about a few times past on Filmgazm which ones I have and haven't seen.
Yeah.
There's about 7 I'm missing, but that's one of them. Yeah, I mean, that title alone was like, when you're a teenager, what is that? Yeah, I got to check this fucking movie out.
Yeah. If you know nothing about Bond and you go into that movie, you're expecting to see a movie about a woman with 8 vaginas, and that's just not at all what that is.
No.
Regrettably.
Indeed, that's
Advertising.
Welcome to America.
Bad. It's not bad. It's just, it's one of Roger Moore's goofiest. He was starting to age towards then. Kamal Khan is such an odd, like, exiled Arabian prince villain working with Russian intelligence agents. Like, what the fuck is this? And there's a circus involved. It's just the weirdest fucking movie. But it's entertaining. And in the end, that's what matters most, I think. What did you think of him as Anton Arcane?
Yikes.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I'm right there with you guys.
Yeah, just not what you want out of the villain here.
Oh, he's fucking terrible. He's not like. Why is he here? I feel like he's so much better than this. Like, why is he here? And he came back for the sequel, despite the fact that his character transforms into a pig wolf and dies. I kind of want to watch the sequel. Just did he turn back after he got stabbed with like Excalibur or whatever the fuck happened at the end of that movie? I guess I kind of want to see the sequel just to find out like what. How do they explain this? Is it his sequel? Is it his like twin brother, Alex Arcane, or some shit?
I actually don't remember, but I think one of the things that always threw me when I saw the transformation and he's like coming out of his suit or whatever, his little cocoon, and it's like, I'm like, what the fuck? What? And then he's just got like this long mullet mane attached to his head, got claws in his teeth, but he decides, no, I need to use a sword. That's how I'm going to destroy this thing. What the fuck?
It's so weird. I mean, already, I think I said in my review that he looks like the big bad wolf fucked one of the 3 little pigs. And
Totally.
It's like, I agree. Like, why the fuck does he grab a sword? It's so strange. We'll get to that.
Oh, man.
There's a lot of stupid shit to unpack with this movie. Ray Wise plays Dr. Alec Holland, the man who would be Swamp Thing. Wise is perhaps best known for his role as Leland Palmer on the TV series Twin Peaks. In addition, Wise has appeared in such films as Good Night and Good Luck, Jeepers Creepers 2, and he voiced Commissioner Gordon in the 2016 animated film Batman the Killing Joke. And Leland Palmer was my favorite character on Twin Peaks. So it was cool to see him again.
Oh, that's so difficult. Favorite character on Twin Peaks? I got to go Bobby Briggs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love Bobby. Yeah.
That little shit?
I love him in The Return as well. Yeah, he's awesome.
Fair enough. Josh, you have a dog in this race?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm Agent Dale Cooper all the way.
Oh.
Well, yeah, that's understood. Yeah.
Although I did have a fondness for David Lynch's character in it too.
Yes.
Just
What?
Anytime Lynch was on screen, it just he just cracks me up.
Yeah,
Cooper,
Robert Forster.
Cooper lost major points for me after 16 plus episodes of fucking Dougie Jones. So
Dougie.
I've got Leland Palmer
Dougie.
still awesome in the brief bit he had in The Return. So I can still like him. Yeah. I have a lot of issues to voice with Twin Peaks, but this is not the time nor the place.
Yeah. We'll have to do that at some point because it's such a captivating. The whole world, the movie, the first 2 seasons, The Return, all of it is. There's so much to it. It's amazing.
Hold that thought. I remember that because I have an idea to share with you after the recording.
Okay, cool. Fire walk with me.
Dick Durock plays Swamp Thing. Durock was a stuntman who ended up taking the role on because Craven realized Ray Wise and the makeup just wasn't believable enough. Durock has also appeared in such films as Stand By Me, The Enforcer, Silverado, and The Return of Swamp Thing. He'd play Swamp Thing many, many times throughout his career until his death in 2009 at age 72 from pancreatic cancer. And, I mean, if you had to pick a big dude to look green, you could do worse. That's pretty much the extent of his involvement in this film.
Yeah.
He's Swamp Squatch. Swamp
Is
Thing
that
has...
going to be your knockoff novel? Your next?
Oh, yeah. I've already started an outline. Yeah, I'm 3 chapters into Swamp Squatch.
Man Squatch.
Man Squatch. That's the ripoff you're going to write? Like Marvel
Yeah.
Man thing?
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Man Squatch. That's fucking awesome.
Drama amongst the Filmgazm team. Copyright infringement.
Oh, my God. We ever end up in entertainment court over fucking Man Squatch?
I will shake your hand.
Rock bottom has found us. Swamp Thing has an IMDb score of 5.4. Sounds about right. And a weirdly positive Rotten Tomatoes score of 67%. This film is also quite acclaimed by famed movie critic Roger Ebert, who gave it 3 out of 4 stars.
God, what a strange guy.
I feel like that man hate-loved a lot of movies.
I'm pretty sure he had to have like eaten an edible or something before he watched it. Like Connor and I read his review. I don't know if you've read it.
I did while I was at work today. Yeah.
What the fuck? Like he is like I felt like he was trying to like get down on his knees and just wait for some swamp goo to get blown all over his face. Like just the opening. Okay, I had to bring it back up because the opening line to it. Where is it at? Hold on, okay, Swamp Thing had already won my heart before its moment of greatness. But when that moment came, I knew I discovered another one of those movies that fall somewhere between buried treasures and guilty pleasures. Dude.
It's like you expect him to say, and when that moment came, so did I.
Yeah, Roger. Roger, my guy.
There's only one part of that review that I'm gonna quote in a little bit later. That like it's the only part of that makes any sense. Everything else outside of that, I just feel like he's just stroking so hard trying to get something good out of this movie, and there's really nothing to get out of it.
Nope.
Nothing. Except maybe some splinters or some thorns or something, whatever the swamp has to leave you prickly. I don't know.
I found nothing but a limp Swamp Thing with this film. I don't know.
Flaccid.
Yeah. Totally flaccid. There's nothing. No Filmgazm was had today.
No, the title of this podcast doesn't necessarily work with this movie.
No, we all went home pretty frustrated. God damn. No word on the film's success, as I can't find the box office gross of this movie anywhere.
And that tells you all you need to know.
Yep. Despite a poor critical reception, it did spawn a franchise, though. So, I don't know. It did something right.
Poor.
And time now for the plot of Swamp Thing. Oh, boy. If you can fucking call it that. So, we open on the swamps of Louisiana, I assume. It's probably the bayou. A scientist is mysteriously killed by a pocket snake. That was a little weird. Just pulling snakes out of your pockets as fucking weapons and just using them to bite people. already I was like, all right, this is that kind of movie. Okay.
I think someone may have watched Indiana Jones before they did this.
Is there a pocket snake in Indiana Jones?
It's snakes in general in the 80s.
I'm trying to back like Belloc just pull a snake out of his hat and like try to attack Indiana Jones. I haven't seen that cut of the film.
That would be a way to end the Indiana Jones franchise.
Yes, indeed. So this guy's killed, and they bring in Alice Cable, who's just a generic government worker, to serve as his replacement. And she keeps pointing out that the swamp sensors, one of them is malfunctioning, but everyone's just like, it's not important. That's where the guy was killed by a gator. Like, that's not a gator, it's a pocket snake. And it reminds me of King of the Hill. Remember Dale, which is pocket sand, people? Remember that?
Come on in over
there. So the project supervisor is this guy named Harry Ritter, and he introduces Cable to this eccentric scientist, Dr. Alec Holland, who's less of an eccentric scientist and more of a pretty mild-mannered, reasonable scientist. And his sister Linda and him are working on some kind of super serum that's going to make plants and animals like a hybrid plant-animal thing that'll fight back, I guess. And it also explodes, and it lights you on fire and turns you into a swamp thing. The properties of this stuff's not very clear. It's just magic formula. And it's apparently Dr. Holland's life's work. And Anton Arcane, this evil leader, like exiled prince, count, military guy, he wants the formula because he wants to use it to sell it to the highest bidder and become richer. So Alec Holland takes Cable on a tour of the swamp, on a boat tour, and apparently they fall in love because the rest of the movie's pretty dependent on that. That's the most unbelievable thing about this movie is their relationship, I think. I mean,
yeah,
they just met.
Two grown-ass people. Yeah, like, what are we doing here?
Like, they just met, and he suddenly, like, takes it upon himself to be her eternal protector. What?
Well, it screams, that's the swamp thing.
Yeah, for sure. But it's such an easy fix. Just have her be like, the old girlfriend who got away or something like that. Some kind of, like they have history, something.
Yeah. I don't know.
No, it's just like, all right, you. It's ridiculous.
We got an hour and a half. You.
We need a subplot, romantic subplot, and the other woman's dead and also his sister. So it's you. They go back to the site, and Ritter and Charlie, the other guy who runs this place, both scold Alice, like, what the hell are you doing? You can't just go traipsing around the swamp with our head scientist here. There's evil paramilitary thugs out there with the gators. God, this movie makes no fucking sense. The more I talk through it, I sound like a fucking maniac.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a lot of cocaine was had, and they just went on the fly. But I don't know. Maybe Josh knows more.
No. It definitely reeks of copious amounts of drugs and bad decisions. Only because it just feels so slapped together, and you just and that was something I brought up to Connor. Was like, I think if Wes Craven would have tackled this later in his career, it would have been a lot better. It would have been. It would have felt like there was more of a story in there, because some of the stuff that Ebert pointed out in his review, it was like he was already trying to, reference some older horror films, classic horror films, and trying to mix that in with what he was doing, but the writing of it, and I don't know how much of that script he wrote, because somebody else was writing it with him, and it did not feel coherent at all. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love seeing David Hess as a bad guy, but why would you be doing your life's research within 100 miles of some fucking weirdo paramilitary dudes who get boners shooting people. Like, why would you want to be anywhere near that? Because tension, that's why. So I just wish this would have been handled a lot better. And it wasn't at all.
Oh, it feels like an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000. It's that well written, if you know what I mean.
I do.
So when they get back to the station, Alice again reiterates, "Hey, broken sensor." And Ritter's like, "Yeah, we're not going to deal with that right now. It's not important." And they hear a loud bang. They go back to the laboratory where Linda shows off her breakthrough, a glowing plant-based concoction with explosive properties. It doesn't really mesh with the whole, swamp thing later, but explosive green plant juice. Okay. Life's work complete. And Alec then shows Alice a hybrid plant and animal cell, his prized work. And later, Alec notices that Linda's formula, when dropped, spawns rapid plant growth wherever they touch. He's basically, like, you combine both these people, it's Poison Ivy from Batman and Robin. Straight up. And of all the movies to rip off, Swamp Thing, really? So Alex, overcome with excitement, he kisses Alice before sending her to go get Ritter. And she gets attacked by a group of paramilitary agents who attack her and raid Alex's laboratory. And Ritter shows up and takes off a Mission Impossible style mask to reveal he's Arcane. That was ridiculous.
Holy shit.
It's on. Linda tries to run with the formula. Arcane shoots her dead. Alex like, no, my sister. He grabs the beaker, trips, and spills the chemicals all over him and gets set on fire. He trips. That's the origin of our great hero here. He runs outside and dives into the swamp to extinguish the flames. And they run after him and start shooting into the water, trying to get this guy. And overnight, Arcane's henchmen destroy the lab. They remove all evidence of their work. And at dawn, a henchman captures Alice, tries to drown her in the swamp. But this green mass jumps out of the water, Jason style, and grabs the guy.
It's pretty badass.
Let's not suck this movie's dick too hard.
Hey, Roger, great minds think alike. Come on.
I'm not gonna call it badass. I can't.
I couldn't be more joking with you.
I know. It looks so fucking goofy. It's ridiculous.
It is very 1982. That right when that happened, I was like, okay, whoa, what are we?
Josh,
is that it?
How did you describe it? The suit?
Oh, it looked like a fucking army surplus wetsuit that had fucking vines hot glued to it.
Yeah. That's probably exactly what happened. Considering the budget on this thing.
Oh, man.
So this thing that came out of the swamp drags Alice ashore, saves her life, and starts chasing Arcane's men down. Meanwhile, yeah, exactly. In his mansion, which leads me to believe, like, Arcane's already rich. Why does he need this? Like, what is his angle here? Does he want to be known as the man who single-handedly invented this explodey green formula? I don't know. Arcane realizes that he thought he had all of Alex's notebooks, but there's one he didn't get. The 7th notebook, his most recent one, that contains the formula that he needs. Alice, who is a bit, freaked out by everything, swamp monster plus people are trying to kill her, goes to a gas station to telephone her employers for help and meets this kid, Jude. And this kid, I mean, he's a really bad actor, this kid. It's hard to get past that. I can practically see him reading the cue cards. And it's not really like, why is he here?
Well, I think what he's doing is watching all of the adults do cocaine, and is surprised and can't act because of the trauma he's going through while this movie's being made.
He's so like, his reactions are like, whoa, looks like we got company. There's like dudes showing up with rifles. Like, just, I don't know. I feel like you take this kid out, nothing changes. There's no real need for the kid. It's weird.
Yeah, agreed.
So Alice manages to call Ritter, who's actually Arcane, and she tells him where they are. Arcane's like, turn around, and just like, shoot, this U-turns that limo like nobody's business and just drives. I love that. Apparently, like, the guy driving that, like, who owned the limo was super pissed about that. Like, he was not supposed to do that to his car.
Yeah. We did not agree to that. That was not in the contract.
Oh my God. So Alice waits for Ritter's return with Jude. Arcane shows up, chases her through the forest. Swamp Thing shows up again, scares the pursuers away. Apparently he's immune to gunfire, because it would suck if you turned into a swamp monster and you could still be shot to death. Once alone, Alice tries to escape the monster and kind of shoos it away. And he's like, all right, fine. And goes back into the trees.
Whatever.
You're welcome.
Whatever, bro.
Jude finds Alice, leads her to a nearby cabin to change clothes. Arcane instructs his men, find Alice and you will find the creature, which he is now obsessed with because he knows this thing is the ultimate, like, end-all, be-all of this formula. The Swamp Thing. He wants it. And Alice and Jude boat around the swamp till they reach the dock near the lab wreckage, and she sees Swamp Thing in the ruins holding Linda's locket and returns to the boat. And I think here's where she realizes that it's Alec. He's the Swamp Thing. And
that guy who cared for me.
That guy who hit on me one time in a boat.
Yeah. In the American South.
Yep. The vague South. She vows she's going to bring the notebook to DC because she's, remember, government worker. Minutes later, Arcane's men show up in a boat. They close in on Alice and Jude. The creature is immediately like, nope, not today, bitch, and jumps out at Arcane's people. And he engineers a boat crash. And now Arcane's like, all right, this thing's intelligent. It really takes Arcane a long time to put the pieces together.
Man.
Hey, look, just because you're rich doesn't mean you're smart. That's all I'm going to say.
Isn't he supposed to be a scientist too?
Supposed to be a scientist, yeah. But
Dr. Arcane.
He's not that good.
I bet he's got a doctorate in, like, art history or something.
Probably something worthless like that.
That's Dr. Arcane to you.
I may not be able to create a formula, but if you made a painting about it, I would be able to tell your influences. Arcane orders his lead henchman, Bruno, continue the search. And Alice gives Jude the notebook and says, get away. And moments after this, kid gets shot. It's supposed to be sad, but the way they filmed it was hilarious. Here, take this, go to safety. Like, immediately.
And that's what he's there for. That's why he's there, Connor.
Yeah.
Figure your head around. Comedic relief.
I didn't think I'd be laughing at the murder of a child in this movie. I mean, you learn something new about yourself every day, I guess.
You're so jaded.
Yeah, for sure. So she hears the boy cry out, sees him dead in a boat. She gets kidnapped before she can act. Swamp Thing goes over to Jude's lifeless body and heals him E.T. style. Swamp Thing can E.T. people. That's
of course.
Awesome.
Oh.
Yeah. Same year as E.T. too. Interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder who ripped who off.
Oh, come on. Clearly Spielberg. Come on.
Yeah, that hack.
This fucking guy.
Hasn't had an original idea his entire fucking career, just ripping off Wes Craven's worst movie.
Hey, his first movie was based on a book. Let's put things in perspective here.
Yeah. You can thank Richard Matheson for Spielberg's career. Thank you very much.
Well, yeah.
Oh my God. I feel dirty having said all that.
Where are we going? Oh no.
God, I feel like I need a shower.
I am not associated with those statements.
That's wrong. Oh, what have I done?
Whatever.
So
Bring the pitchforks out for me. I don't care.
So Jude wakes up and is like, hey, I guess I'm alive now. Are you a friend of Alice's? And Swamp Thing's like, yeah. Well, then this is your notebook. No, like, holy shit, you're a green swamp monster. I have questions. Just, can I trust you? Sure. They got to move the story along.
Well, if I meet anybody who's friends with Alice, I immediately trust them with my life.
Well, if I am in the swamp and I run into any, 8-foot tall green monsters, I'm going to just assume that they're friendly. That's what I do.
Yeah. Especially if you add the fact that they're friends with Alice. I mean,
didn't he is this before or after he crushes that dude's head with his bare hands?
I don't remember.
That would be a big red flag of trust for me. I mean, I don't care if it's a bad guy, but there were easier ways to deal with that situation. That was personal. Oof. So on Arcane's boat, Alice throws her kidnapper, guy with the super badass name of Ferret, throws him overboard.
Project Badass.
She dives into the water, swims ashore, and what do you know? It bumps into Swamp Thing. He's within shouting distance at all times.
Don't worry, we're on the buddy system. Buddy!
Like she has a Swamp Thing alert necklace that she just pushes, and then he shows up within 5 minutes. Help, help, I've fallen in the swamp and I can't get up.
Life alert.
Ugh. So Swamp Thing's like, Alice, or I know he says Cable, because she goes by her last name most of the time. And Ferret cuts off Swamp Thing's arm with a knife, but the creature snaps Ferret's neck. She wakes up in his embrace. This is when she recognizes it's Alec. Before this, he was just that helpful green monster that kept popping up around her.
The Jolly Green Giant. Yeah, just your friendly neighborhood Jolly Green Giant.
And Swamp Thing's like, yep, I'm Alec. And she asks, does that hurt? And he says, only when I laugh. And that was Roger Ebert's magic moment. And later she strips naked and goes skinny dipping in the fucking swamp. If you're watching the international cut, you see an eyeful. And
everybody knows you can take a refreshing, totally clean romp in the swamp and everything will be fine. You're not going to come out with leeches on your taint or anything like that. It's not going to happen. You are going to walk away with a super strong UTI. You're not getting rid of that thing for a few weeks. That thing's going to stay in you.
Adrian!
Ow. Jesus. And, God. She's bathing in the swamp like it's some magical grotto. I can't get over that. That's the most disgusting shit. She's not Shrek. You can't just do that. It's disgusting. Ugh. And Swamp Thing's just kind of like watching her, but not watching her.
Creeping.
Oh, yeah.
Creeping hard.
Mm-hmm.
He is rubbing some twigs together.
Oh, Jesus Christ. How does that even work for Swamp Thing? I mean, I got to hope one of the trade-offs of that shit is, some growth.
Obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. You saw what he grew out of that stump. He's packing. He's packing. He can grow to fit any container.
Swamp Thing's packing tree trunk. Is that where we've come to tonight?
Yeah. No bark though. No bark though.
No bark.
That'll leave splinters. Yeah, all smooth.
Oh my God.
Circumcised.
Yep. Ugh. So as she dresses, Arcane's men follow her and capture Swamp Thing in a net like it's no thing. And have you guys seen Kung Pao Enter the Fist?
Oh, yeah.
Remember when he gets captured in the tiny net? That's all I could think of when they got Swamp Thing with the net.
Oh, well, yeah. At this point in the movie, if you make it this far, your mind is racing to anything else to just kind of get through it. Yeah.
A tiny net is a death sentence. It's a net and it's tiny.
That's where Connor's mind went. Yeah.
Yep. And hasn't left. It's been a day. I'm still there. So now that they've captured Swamp Thing, Arcane does the typical evil genius shit and invites Alice to a formal dinner party celebrating his duplication of the formula. He as a toast to prospective immortality and reveals that to test this shit, he gave it to Bruno, who turns into a fucking pig dwarf. It's not what I was expecting. And Bruno's like, dude, the fuck? And runs away. Arcane locks him in a dungeon and asks Swamp Thing, like, hey, what happened? Why did he not turn into a giant Swamp Thing? And Swamp Thing somehow knows this and is like, well, the formula reflects what's inside. It sees your soul and builds on that. Like, no, that's not how chemicals work.
God.
But yeah, so Bruno was a sniveling little bastard, so he turned into a tiny pig. And Arcane's a dick, so he turned into a wolf pig. It's always pigs for everybody's Swamp Thing. Yeah, so Arcane, being egotistical, thinks, I am the world's greatest person, therefore this will turn me into a god. So he locks Alice in the dungeon and drinks a glass of this shit. A beam of sunlight goes through the dungeon door and regrows Swamp Thing's arm. And he escapes, frees Alice and Bruno, who says, I can get you out of here. And they're like, lead the way, little pig man. Arcane turns into a big old wolf pig boar and grabs a sword and goes into the dungeons to fight Swamp Thing, as you do.
All right. That sentence that you just said. Whoa. Wow. That's just, yeah. A boar-like beast descends to the dungeons with a sword.
Sounds like a bad
stuff.
Dungeons and Dragons game, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly.
But first he goes through this like super paper mache cocoon phase. He just starts ripping off and he just like, it's really bad. This was not winning any makeup awards.
No.
So he discovers that his captives have escaped through an underwater tunnel leading right back to the swamp. Of course. Why does Arcane have a tunnel that leads to the swamp? Sometime later, Alice and Swamp Thing emerge from the water. Arcane shows up, stabs Alice with a sword. Swamp Thing starts fighting. Arcane just starts punching him out and goes and heals Alice. And he ends up killing Arcane with the sword. And Swamp Thing is like, my work is done here. I must return to my homeland. And Alice is like, will I ever see you again? And he's like, if you come back to the swamp, I'm never leaving this place. He has work to do. What that work is, who the fuck knows? But he says, you'll see me again. And then Jude emerges from the trees and embraces Alice as Swamp Thing lumbers away to be mistaken for Sasquatch till the end of his days. And, oh, God, this might be worse than Exorcist 2. In the films we've covered, this might be at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely right there with this Exorcist 2. I would give it a 4 out of 10. I just, there's just not really anything there that I found that I could connect with, or in no way do I feel like I want to rewatch it, sort of thing. So yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah. Josh, how about you?
So I think rating wise, I probably have to go with what you gave it, Connor, which would be a 5. Um, again, just I feel like this was a really young Wes Craven who probably may or may not have had the control that he would have wanted. And I would love to hear what he says about this. If there's an interview somewhere, I'd love to
Yeah.
hear. Just to kind of see like where he was with that. But I think as far as swamp monster hero movies, it's number one as far as that goes, because I don't think you guys have covered one yet. So it might be the bottom of the barrel in the whole litany of Filmgazm episodes, but it's the number one swamp monster movie.
I don't know. I think number one swamp monster movie is Shrek. I think he wins.
Swamp Thing would totally kick Shrek's ass.
Shrek would punt that bitch out of his swamp.
Can I count Crawl?
No,
because it's more in a house. Yeah,
it's a bayou movie, but I don't consider the gators swamp things. I'm just picturing Shrek and Swamp Thing like whacking each other with full-size gators.
I don't know, man. I mean, what Shrek does in that scene in front of Farquaad's at his castle is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, he beat somebody. He knocked somebody out with a folding chair centuries before folding chairs existed. That's some giant stone balls right there.
Ogres have layers.
Exactly. You don't want to mess with the onions on Shrek. Anyway, here's some Filmgazm facts. Number 1, when initially released on DVD in the U.S., the international version of the movie containing scenes of nudity not seen in U.S. theaters were accidentally transferred instead of the U.S. version. After complaints from viewers, the DVD was recalled, and I got to imagine those recalled DVDs are worth a pretty penny nowadays. But why would you complain? I mean, in the midst of all this horrible shit, you've got Adrienne Barbeau's tits, and you're complaining? My God. Some people have no class.
This takes away from the story, guys.
Number 2, Bruno's transformation after being dosed with the formula isn't quite what Craven had envisioned. The same goes for Arcane's creature, and when asked for the director's thoughts, his immediate reply is a big sigh. Ah, that sucks.
And I think everybody else who's seen these monsters will do the same thing.
Yep.
What the fuck?
Number 3, the idea for A Nightmare on Elm Street came to Craven during production on this film, and that's the only positive that came out of it career-wise. He survived a few years off the paychecks from this and Deadly Blessing, but that quickly dried up. Quote, I went through all the money I had saved. I lost my house, and I was literally selling my goods. And I think I borrowed from Sean Cunningham $5,000 to pay my taxes that year. So Wes Craven was on the verge of bankruptcy, and then he came up with Freddy Krueger, and that's how he became studio, gold for a while. So thank God for Swamp Thing, or else we never would have had Elm Street, I guess.
See, and you thought there was nothing redeeming about this movie. Look at that. Out of this steaming pile of the swamps, this little flower grew.
I reiterate, tits. But whatever.
Adrienne Barbeau's tits didn't birth Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven suffering through this shit whole movie.
We don't know the situation. Her tits might have been involved somehow. We don't know. What if he was filming that and he had a dream about it later, and then some knife-wielding crazy man came into his dreams, and he woke up and he's like, Freddy Krueger, I'm going to write this down. That's probably exactly what happened.
I'm going to get you, bitch.
The film's only theatrical sequel was 1989's The Return of Swamp Thing, which saw Dick Durock and Louis Jordan return in their respective roles. The film co-stars Heather Locklear and Sarah Douglas, among others. It's written as more of a comedy and a spoof, and it was a colossal bomb. IMDb score 4.7, Rotten Tomatoes score 44%. Didn't work. There will be no Swamp Thing 3. There was a TV series made in 1990 called Swamp Thing that starred Dick Durock in the title role. It lasted 3 seasons and has garnered a cult following. So, success comes in mysterious ways. Then there was another TV show made last year, also titled Swamp Thing, that debuted on the DC Universe streaming service. James Wan was the executive producer, and the cast included Virginia Madsen, Kevin Durand, Crystal Reed, and Derek Mears as Swamp Thing. Despite critical and fan acclaim, the show was abruptly and inexplicably canceled right after the first episode aired to a great reception. To this day, nobody but the DC execs know why the hell they canceled Swamp Thing so abruptly. Such a waste.
It's fucking terrible. That series was really, really good. And I was actually even more upset that they cut the last 3 episodes because of it. All because they were trying to pull out. I got excited because that was, film and TV coming back to Wilmington, North Carolina, where I'm from.
Yeah.
Super stoked about that. And Derek Mears was fantastic as Swamp Thing. When you mentioned earlier about Ray Wise, Wes wanted him to be able to emote and do all that stuff. Derek Mears does so much in that makeup and in that role, and it's crazy because if you ever watch the show Holliston from Adam Green, Derek Mears plays a stupid cop in that, but you just see Derek Mears is actually a pretty damn good actor to do this comedic stuff. But then he was Jason, and then he was Swamp Thing. And you're just like, wow, this guy's actually got something here. Swamp Thing is probably one of the best creatures he's ever done.
Right on. I definitely want to check out this show. I took a look at the makeup and it looked fucking incredible. So yeah, I mean, it's not like it could be worse.
Yeah, the bar is very low.
Yes, indeed. And it's 1 season. I can breeze through 1 season in a weekend. Yeah, so 5. I think it's terrible, poorly written, dull. But before we preview next week's episode, let's do like old times and talk about what happened this week in film.
Yes.
First up, the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences have decided to postpone next year's Oscars to April 25th, 2021. So only a 2-month bump, not that severe.
I don't understand all this scheduling and looking at the calendar and moving things this year and that. Nothing's set in stone. It could be moved back more. We could not even have an Oscars. Who knows, man? My case would be with look at what's happened with Tenet, with Christopher Nolan's Tenet. It's moved dates 10 times, and I'm just tired of that kind of let's just go back to the drawing board and not worry about that tour for sure, about the theater even opening. It's tough, man, but the Academy just doesn't want to miss a year for history's sake.
Yeah. And I'm torn because, I don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't want anybody risking their lives, but I also, I think there's ways to do this smart. I think, making some deals with these streaming services would be beneficial to everybody.
It's the only way.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that the Oscars bending the rules a bit for next year's show would be, beneficial. I just think that they're living in the past too much, and a lot of them are just refusing to compromise with the way things are going to be looking forward. And no good comes out of that. Just pigheadedness never works in any situation. And you just come off looking like an asshole. So, you got to work with the way things are going. And right now it's looking like this is going to be a way of the world for quite a while. Until we can actually come up with a viable solution, it's going to be, shut down movie theaters and masks. So get with the program.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're going by the logic of pushing something as big as the Oscars to April, then what does that mean for the following year? Does it lose 2 whole months of movies being able to be up? Is that whole schedule messed up? I think the only way for this to all be resolved is for stuff like The Five Bloods, to be moved straight to a streaming service where people can see it, people can watch it and have an opinion. And then you have your Oscars in February. You just don't have a live show. you just do what these other TV shows are doing, and whatever, get on Zoom, get on Skype, whatever it may be, because there's just no way you can plan a live show right now.
Nope. Yeah, I don't know how it's going to end up. I mean, I'm, barely thinking ahead to tomorrow in this climate, let alone April.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Who the fuck knows?
Yeah, exactly. That's ultimately, we don't know. No one really knows. That's what's scary about it all, is the uncertainty. And movies obviously aren't, massively important in the realm of human safety, but we want our comfort back. We want the theater back. We want to be able to do that, and until that happens, I agree with you, Connor. We can't guarantee anything, can't say anything for sure. It's just, we don't know.
We just don't. 2 trailers debuted this week. The first, You Should Have Left, starring Kevin Bacon and Amanda Seyfried as a couple who move into a haunted house. Produced by Blumhouse. Yeah, produced by Blumhouse, written and directed by David Koepp. I think this has potential. It'll be released on demand this Friday, June 19th. I saw Blumhouse. I'm in.
Yeah, me too. And that's a really interesting pairing, right? You got quite an interesting age gap between those two, but I'm super excited.
Well, that comes up in the movie, I think. I think she's like his second wife.
Yeah, that's what it looked like in the trailer. Yeah.
What do you think, Josh?
I actually haven't seen it, but I'm pretty comfortable with whatever Blumhouse is putting out. They like to take a chance and give control to the directors and the writers and all of that. So it can't be any worse than other things that have been coming out. So
we might do You Should Have Left on the show if the rental price is under $20, because that's fucking insane.
I mean, we saw that happen with King of Staten Island, where it's like 20. It's like, all right, I know that's hard.
Yeah,
well, it's hard, but then like if you try to like break it down, like I've seen a couple of people talking about the rationale behind it. If you've got it for a weekend and you have friends over, if you think about the eyes that are on it, you're spending like $5 a person. There's all different kinds of ways.
That is true.
Yeah.
We could split it. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Because I thought about that in relation to like with my kids. I go out, I take them out to the movies. It's like $60.
Yeah,
oh, dude. Yeah.
It's a fucking nightmare. And then you're like, well, goddamn, I can't do this 4 times a month. I'll be fucking cleaned out in just like what I have set aside for recreational things. So
yeah,
true.
This is definitely one of those things that if it persists and more theaters get shut down, it's definitely going to be a way of the future for sure.
It's definitely going to make, I think, people like us have to be a lot more choosy about what we take a look at, which sucks because I hate being choosy when it comes to movies. But you got to do what you got to do.
I for myself, I am going to be much more inclined to watch something old, right? Something that has something behind it, has some substance there as far as reviews and a whole history behind it, a legacy. But like you say, Connor, you have to get choosy. When I go this past year to the theater, Connor, you and I went and saw so many movies in 2019. We were like really trying to tackle one every weekend, and when you're going to see these movies, you're literally paying that $10 to get away and go see something on a big screen and see the trailers and have that whole bit. And then you go home. But when it turns into like Josh is saying, where you're paying for your family and it's $60, it's like, man, you got to really think about this. Like, am I going just to entertain my family? Am I going for my own enjoyment? What am I doing here? And it's going to get to a scary place for people who want to see as much new stuff as possible, because it's going to get very expensive for people to see as much new stuff as possible.
Yeah.
I've already missed movies I would have seen in theaters for sure, just because of that mind, that mentality. I totally agree that it's smarter to maybe do it this way. We all spend $5, but it's about that experience of going to the theater, sitting in that chair, hearing it really fucking loud. That's all a huge part of being a big movie fan, and the fear of that being sort of stripped away is pretty scary.
More sad than scary, I think. For me, it's just like,
It's very sad.
The movies have been such an ingrained part of my life, my entire life. It's been something I've looked forward to all the time since as far back as I can remember. And to have, for the idea that might be going away, depending on how the world's going to look like in the next few months, is, I don't know, it's just like losing, I feel like I'm losing a part of myself. It doesn't feel right.
Well, here, let me tell you. So let me fill you guys in on something real quick. That Alamo Drafthouse has released what their plans are, sort of, not really a timeline, but what they're going to try to do is have people, if they want to order food, is order your ticket online and order your food online, so that right when you get there, you sit down, your food like comes to you or whatever. So essentially, they're taking the server position away. And, it's just going to be people. Yeah, it's not going to be the same. It's just not. It's not. And it might never be the same, is the way this could go, is we, as an entire culture and society, adapt completely. And places like Drafthouse might just not exist anymore.
Oh, jeez. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to think
neither do I, but it is very real. And it definitely, when you see this stuff coming out for $20 on video on demand, and you're like, all right, I guess this is how it's going to be for now,
Yeah, but I paid $15 for Capone, and it fucking sucked.
Yeah, you're taking a serious risk without the theater experience.
Yeah. Shit.
At least when you go see Transformers, it's on a giant screen.
Don't forget, though, boys, there's always the drive-in.
That's true, but as we saw with the King of Staten Island, drive-ins aren't getting the kind of movies that they want. King of Staten Island got recalled immediately.
Sure. But it's still something that's out there, and I think the more that people start to go to the drive-in, and the studios start seeing that, okay, we have no theaters, but people are going to the drive-in,
we can do this.
Come through. Yeah, it'll start coming back around. I can see that happen.
Yeah, dude, think about exactly a year ago, like right now, July 9th, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood comes out. Can you imagine the people in California going to a fucking showing of that outside to see Once Upon a Time right now? Come on, man. It would be, I think there is a place and an audience that would be very down for that kind of adapting, where you're sitting in your car. I think a lot more people would be able to do drugs in their car if they're at a drive-in, right? Or, and just, it's a more of your own experience. So yeah, that's a good point, man.
That's good. I'm going to look into my local drive-in, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
The other trailer that debuted, Bill and Ted Face the Music, starring Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter, who are returning to their iconic roles 29 years after the previous film. The film is a direct sequel to 1989's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and 1991's Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and it looks like it could go either way. The film will also see the return of William Sadler as Death, by the way. So I like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I don't love it.
Yeah, same.
Haven't seen Bogus Journey. I feel like we don't need this. And they're just both too old for this to be believable. I don't buy Bill and Ted as fucking dads. It's just weird.
I don't know how I feel about it. I'm hopeful, but I'm also very much like, I hope this doesn't suck.
Yeah,
it's just gonna taint everything else.
There is nothing sacred anymore. Nothing. Anything is up for grabs. The day that they announce a remake to Back to the Future, I'm gonna bust some heads. Like, you're not touching that. I will burn some studios to the ground if I fucking have to. Don't touch my movie.
Luckily, my favorite movie is Magnolia, and no one is ever going to touch that.
Some artsy fartsy, NYU student might. We'll see.
I dare him.
Magnolia 2, Magnolia.
Yeah.
Magnoliast.
The return of Frank T.J. Mackey.
Respect the cock.
How many times has that fucking come up on this show? Like at least 6.
Well, it's my favorite movie, man. Anytime
Yeah.
I get a chance to.
Absolutely, man. I get it. Awesome. Yeah, you're safe. But my favorite movie of all time is like one of the biggest movies of the 80s and a pop culture icon. So it's constantly in danger of being set up for a remake.
It's possible for sure.
Ugh, one day. Zemeckis has constantly said "over my dead body." So the second he's in the ground, some asshole's going to try to remake that movie.
Yeah.
Next, Gone with the Wind has been removed from HBO Max due to its depiction of African Americans and slavery. Now, I haven't seen Gone with the Wind, but I'm very much against this. I don't think we should be trying to erase films like this and act like they never happened. I think we should acknowledge the mistake, accept that times were different, and leave the decision to watch it up to the viewer.
Yeah, well, I can't stand that movie, so I'm cool with it. But I kind of agree with you as far as like art goes. I think it's up to the chooser. But it's also, like Disney Plus, Songs of the South. Like that one probably shouldn't be there because it's like kids using it, And when a kid is watching a Disney movie, it's like, oh man, they're really believing that shit, and it's sometimes not the right philosophy to teach kids.
But in that vein, I look at what Warner Brothers did before their super racist Looney Tunes. They put a disclaimer that says this does not reflect the views of Warner Brothers today. Times were different. We regret our actions, but to act like these cartoons didn't happen is to acknowledge that this kind of prejudice never existed, and we refuse to do that. So with that mindset, watch this knowing that we could have done things differently. I respect the hell out of that, and I wish Disney would take that same approach.
It's hard, man. It's hard when the thought of like my daughter having the controller and not knowing what she's watching. And I don't know. I wouldn't want her watching that movie.
Well, yeah, but wouldn't that be up to you? Like, wouldn't that be your like that? Should
of course if I'm with her, but if I'm not, I mean, think about how many. Maybe Josh can speak to this a little bit. I think the HBO Max thing is ridiculous with Gone with the Wind. Again, that movie, I just don't think it's good. But it's HBO Max. It's an adult, streaming service. Disney Plus is definitely one that like, and Netflix too has like the kids thing where you can like kid actually has the remote and knows how to use it these days. Like that's where we're at in 2020. And I just feel like when my daughter Willow is able to do that, I wouldn't want her roaming around to that movie if she was by herself watching TV. I would rather it be, I don't know, any other Disney, Moana or whatever,
Yeah. Josh, your thoughts on this?
I mean, I just try to make sure that if I can have some level of control over their access, with Disney Plus, they have a specific account that's just for them. So
Yeah.
if I come on and I'm like doing chores around the house, it's only on the kids' profile. They can't even watch Marvel movies on it.
Good.
So
Yeah.
If they want to watch that stuff, I have to take control of it. The Netflix is the same thing. It's all age restricted, and they're young enough that some of that stuff is probably going to go over their head anyway, even if they did watch something. So yeah, I mean, my parents let me watch whatever I wanted, and I would sneak out and watch whatever I wanted anyway. And I think being able to have that kind of dialogue and have that kind of relationship where you're trying to educate your kids on what they're seeing, what they're being exposed to, making sure that you have, it's a two-way street. If they have questions, they shouldn't be afraid to come to you and ask you and talk to you. That helped me to kind of, ask questions about stuff I was seeing and know that I wasn't going to get in trouble for, interpreting something or just being like, what are they talking about? Why is this funny? What are they laughing about here?
Yeah.
I think being able to be responsible about that, because trying to censor something and tell somebody they can't watch this, they're going to find it one way or another. At least if you are, saying, come to me and talk to me about this stuff, or let's watch it together. You're fostering a better environment than just totally shutting them down and saying, you're not watching this, you're not going to watch this. Because then when they are exposed to it later, they, you could always have that moment where they look at you like, why didn't you let me see this? Like, I needed to know about this. And it's not an easy thing. I can't tell you, Austin, as a dad, like, this is what you should do. It's all about what works for you and what dynamic you have with Brianna, and how you guys are raising your daughter. Like, it's the same way with me and my wife. We're always constantly talking about that kind of stuff. So, I think as a general rule, art shouldn't be censored. It should be up to, if you don't like it, change the channel. If you don't like the music,
yeah.
Well, that's what I see. Like, I don't have kids, so I can't even begin to pretend that I understand that realm at all. But for me, it just comes down to censorship on art, and I think that it's a slippery slope. I think once you start saying Gone with the Wind is a film that shouldn't be watched, I think you could start saying that about a lot of films from that time that can just be out of existence, and I think that that's unfair. So that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah, and I really do agree with basically everything you guys are saying. It just comes down to each scenario, what exactly, like, how old your kid is, when you want them to start learning things about race or about, religion and politics. Like, when do you want them to start asking those kinds of questions? And I appreciate that we can have this kind of space on a movie podcast to talk about really just morality and what you are okay with seeing. But yes, and me, Connor, man, censoring art is like the last thing anybody should do. I've praised some movies on here that no child should see.
Yeah,
we just did The Brood not too long ago, which I think is one of the best movies we've done on the entire podcast. And that movie probably shouldn't be seen by children, but it's hard to figure out what age. I think it can be up to the person as well. It's great. It's a great situation, man.
Well, and again, I haven't seen Gone with the Wind yet. I might have different views after I see the movie.
Yeah, I just don't like it. I don't understand that. Like,
but do you not like it for racial issues or because it's just boring?
The whole thing. All of it.
Okay.
All of it is a mess to me. Yeah, I don't like it. But that happens a lot with Best Picture winners.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Well, that was a meaty discussion, guys. Thank you for that.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Finally, and we're going to end on a high note here. I couldn't be more excited. Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell have announced production will soon begin on a fourth Evil Dead film titled Evil Dead Now. Director Lee Cronin will be taking the reins, having been handpicked by Raimi. Cronin's previous film was 2019's The Hole in the Ground. Campbell has said he will not be returning as Ash Williams, and the film will feature a new group of teenagers who stumble upon the horrors of the Necronomicon. Campbell is staying on to produce. Evil Dead 4, finally here, but it's going to be a reimagining. I'm okay with that.
Yes, me too.
As long as, Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell are involved and it has their blessing, who am I to say otherwise? It's good.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. I think it being more about, some kids finding this book and the hell that it unleashes is kind of like the crux of this franchise.
Yeah,
it's always been. I mean, at the beginning it was just about the book, and then Bruce Campbell, created this character that has endured, and I think so many people wanted to see that continue because everybody loves Ash. He's like he's everybody's favorite hero. So some people can be butthurt about it, but
we saw in the 2013 Evil Dead remake that it can be done without Ash and work. So
yeah,
I'm excited to see where this goes. I wonder if they're going to acknowledge the show at all, or that's just going to be its own little contained thing.
Well, I think if the 2013 remake was any indication, yeah, there'll probably be something in there. Something slipped in, I'm sure. Not just that old fucking Buick fucking chilling.
That's all I need.
Yeah.
I've said before, I think Evil Dead is the one flawless horror franchise that has no weak links. And I think this is going to be good.
I'm excited.
Well, that is all for this week. Stay tuned for Oscar Sunday, where we will be diving into Rocky and the franchise that it spawned. Next week, we're traveling to Mexico with outlaw brothers Seth and Richard Gecko, who are on the run for murder and looking to escape the law. What they find is a titty bar full of vampires, and the fight for survival is on in Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino's action horror cult classic From Dusk Till Dawn. Can't wait.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And until then, stay out of the swamp and watch out for wolf pig monsters. See you next Wednesday.